Is my screen visible to everyone? Okay. Now, yesterday we did a practical on personality, and today we will be doing it on memory. Well, general problem will be on memory, specific problem to determine the effect of whole versus part method of learning on memorization capacity of the subject. Now, as we are writing about memorization, that means forgetting will be there. We will forget things, and that is an essential part. Memory is not always perfect. So, when we are saying we will be analyzing or will be assessing the amount that a person can memorize, that denotes obviously whatever information you take in, that we do not actually have 100% retention. Something will be lost. Okay. Now see how this memory fades. Here you can see that the memory performance.
This call is now being recorded.
The memory performance, it actually yes, we were here. This is about a curve of memory, if you can see. Then, oops. Is it all right? Okay. Now, okay. So we went over here in this curve. Now just note the curve. It says rapid forgetting for a short delays, slower for longer delays. Now here in this graph, if you see the horizontal line, it is the time, and the vertical one is the memory performance. Okay, so what it is showing, that the memory performance, now see the line first it says 20 minutes, that was 58.2%, then after 1 hour it was 44.2, after 9 hours 35.8, after 1 day 33.7, after 2 days 27.8, and after 6 days it was 25.4. Now here if you say that in the first rapid time, like 20 minutes 1 hour, it's in the same day and it's within a difference of few minutes. The decline of memorization was from 58 to 44. Okay, then when we are progressing, as the time is increasing, the amount of information that is being forgotten, it is actually declining. So rapid forgetting is happening for the short delays, but for the longer ones it is for the slower. Why? Because when we know we have the 3 storage compartments, so the materials that is retained for in the long term memory, that will not decay or fade away easily. So in the first time, in the first few minutes or first few seconds, when we have to memorize the things, there is the time when we have very rapid forgetting. লিঙ্ক পাঠিয়েছে 4টে ক্লাসে 4:35 অনেক না আমি নিয়েছি খুব এটা অসুবিধা নেই, 5:30 বাজে ক্লাসটা শেষ হবে। আচ্ছা, দ্বিতীয় কথা হচ্ছে জাস্ট আমাদের জন্য কি একটু চায়ের ব্যবস্থা করে দিতে পারো? কনস্ট্যান্ট কথা বলতে হয় অনলাইন ক্লাসে। বলে দিন, একটু বলে দেবো। আর কি কথা আছে? Okay, now we are coming to, was this clear, this curve? Hello? Okay. Now for the, here you will see like memory is not always perfect, and what do we forget? The retrospective, autobiographical memory, the prospective memory. And how, why do we forget? Is because of the failure of consolidation, failure of retrieval. Now, failure of consolidation is when, think of a cement slab, okay, when the cement, it's in the liquid form, they mix it, you can give any shape to it, but after it has been solidified, we cannot move that shape, or we cannot modify that shape. So that is actually with memory. If the information that has come to us, we have consolidated it, then it's solidified, and generally we do not forget those elements. But if there is a failure of consolidation, there obviously will be forgetting of. Okay, next is failure of retrieval. The things that we try to remember, why its failure of retrieval is happening? For decay, for interference, and for context or cue mismatch. Decay is a decay of information. What is that? By an example, you can take the example of that Darwin use and disuse theory. Whatever things you don't use, actually that organs we don't use. If we don't use some organs, that is obsoleted. So that is, in that way, if certain informations we do not exercise or keep them back in our STM now or then that information generally decay out. Then interference, obviously interference of certain informations that can be in the form of the same material interference in the proactive or retroactive inhibition. I will be discussing about it in detail in next slides. So that can interfere, or some other informations coming, like too many informations coming at a time, so that can be interfering with one another. Then context or cue mismatches. If you have set a faulty cue to something, you have kept a cue for to remember a thing, but that cue is not apt for the remembrance of that material, then that cue mismatch will make you actually forget, rather than helping you in memorizing. This thing will actually decline your memorization capacity. Now, what we will write in our L&D, we will be writing about the memory definition. You can take it from anywhere in your basic concept, in any book, any general psychology book, any cognitive psychology book. You will get a proper definition of memory with a reference. Now, what we will talk about? We will talk about encoding, storage and retrieval. Encoding, storage and retrieval. What is that? Encoding is like when the information is encoded in brain. Why do we use the term encoding? Coding is using code forms. Like right now we are speaking in English and you are understanding in English only. Here many of us have their mother tongue Bengali, somebody might have it Nepali, somebody might have it in Hindi. But we all right now are taking this lesson in English. But our brain have their own language, own chemical way of understanding the informations and reacting to the informations. So whenever brain take the information, that person take it in its way, and that is actually in the form of encoding. Why do we call it encoding? Because this information is encoded in a special way, and it's encoded in a language that is understandable to the brain. Okay. Then storage, the information that is encoded generally goes for the storage system. We have sensory, short-term memory and long-term memory. Then about the factors of memory, what we'll write, that is, we all know information gathering, then storage, then retrieval and recognition. I guess you people have done theory on memory. Can anyone tell me, do you have already completed the theory part of memory? So these parts are clear to you. Okay, so you know you have to write about the factors of memory. Then Atkinson-Shiffrin model, you know. Now we'll be coming to the memory span. Why this concept of memory span is important for this practical. What is a memory span? Memory span is the number of elements that you can attend to, that you can remember after a single exposure. This single exposure, this doesn't only mean that it has to be a visual exposure. It can be auditory exposure, it can be tactile. So what are the elements that is presented to you in a single time, and how many you can remember? That is your memory span. That is after one exposure, how much you can remember, that is your memory span, not your memorization capacity. Okay, so memory span is the number of items you can retain after just one exposure. Now, in this practical, we will be using the nonsense syllables. Why are we using the nonsense syllable? To control association. What is association? Now, whenever we try to learn something new, generally we associate with it with our previous knowledge. Just think about our class. The way our academic is lined up in various standards, like from 6 to 7 to 8, it is basically done in a linear way, that is, it is just a step ahead of the previous year. So whenever we learn something new, we generally have an association with it. And if that associative value is strong, we easily remember the thing. And the more knowledge we have, the more vocabulary we have, if we are the more exposure we have more associative values. Like when you will be doing the nonsense syllable, you will understand. The one who have a Bengali mother tongue will have some nonsense syllables associated with the Bengali words that we use. Same in the case for the Hindi ones. That can be for someone who is in French or in Nepali. So to control that association value, why? Because if something is associative to my knowledge, then I'll remember that part more. So that won't actually measure my memorization capacity, because it is always boosted up by some cue or by some help. Okay, so Ebbinghaus used the nonsense syllable to control the association. Now there is two types of nonsense syllables that we use, CVC and CCC, that is consonant, vowel, consonant. Else consonant, consonant, consonant. Now next we will be talking about the serial positioning effect. What is serial positioning effect? When we study a list of elements or a number of elements at a time, it is generally seen that the things that we learn when we start off, just think of a study macro. When you are trying to mug up an answer regarding anything, we generally tend to memorize the introduction part very well. We also remember the conclusion para very well. But generally, we forget the ones in between. So this is what Ebbinghaus said is a serial positioning effect. That what we learn primarily, we retain that because that is the first impression we are getting, and that is called a primacy principle. And the last part, you have just prepared the material. So this is the recent thing that we have done. So that thing is also remembered more. So that is called recency. So this is the serial positioning effect, which describes that when a material is learned, then the portion which is learned at the first part and the portion which is learned lastly will be remembered the most. Now there are certain rules for making the nonsense syllables that we'll have to remember. These rules are, Obviously we will be doing the CVC method. So for that we will be doing the consonant vowel consonant. That is, at one side there will be a consonant, in the middle there will be a vowel, and in another side there will be a consonant again. Then it's the vowel. Now you have a list. I have said that we will be using list of nonsense syllables. So for the lists of paper, the nonsense syllables should not have the order of A, E, I, O, U in between. Okay, they should not have that. That order should not be there. Like when you're creating the list, make it sure the middle vowel does not come in order of A, E, I, O, U. Then it should not have any meaningful association. Like I have given you two examples. Why? J-O-R, it's jor. It is actually nonsense for many of you, but for the Bengali ones, it reminds of fever. B-O-T, though it does not have a meaning, but in English we have an association with bot. So this is the thing I was talking about, that the syllables should not have any associative value. Then the same consonant should not be used sideways, up, down or across. That means the same consonant cannot be used in the same CVC. That is, the one you are using in the first part won't be using in the last part. In the same way, when you are ending the consonants that is there in the previous nonsense syllable, those consonants should not be there in the next nonsense syllable. That's why, so it should not be similar up, down or across. Then same syllable cannot be repeated in any list. Like memory span list, then list A, list B, whatever the number of list B, we cannot repeat any of the nonsense syllables in any list. So every list should have a new set of nonsense syllables. Now Q, W, X, Y, Z, or I forgot to mention V also. V, this consonants cannot be used in nonsense syllables. C or K and G or J cannot be used in a list. Sorry, it will be cannot be used in a list. We can either use C or K in the same list. That is, in a list where we are using C, we won't be making any syllable with K. And in the same way, if in any list we are making a syllable with G, then we won't be making any syllable with J. So we will be using either C or K and either G or J. H cannot be used at the end of the syllables. That is, like B-U-H, you cannot use. H cannot be at the end of the syllable. Consecutive alphabets cannot be used. Consecutive, it's like, see, D, E, G. This is actually a nonsense syllable, but D, E, A, B, C, D, E. So two consecutive syllables, alphabets are coming next to next. So this cannot be used, like POV. Then rhythmic syllables cannot be used in a list. Like I have given you the example, K-A-L, R-A-L. That means if you are using K-A-L in a list, in the same list you cannot use R-A-L. Now we will be talking about a paper window. I'll show you how a paper window is made. Excuse me, guys. Why we use a paper window? We use a paper window so that one syllable is visible at a time. When you are showing one syllable, make it sure that the previous one or the next one is not visible through the window, or in the way the window is made, it should not be visible. And exposure time for each syllable is 2 seconds. So you have to practice it in home, that too silently, how you can take the rhythm of 2 seconds. You can practice it by following your wristwatch. Just follow the rhythm. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. This is the rhythm of your tick-tock of your wristwatch in 2 seconds. And this you should actually maintain while you are showing the list, that to silently to maintain this 2 seconds exposure time. Okay, we do not need so much for not all of you. Okay. See, these are the theories of forgetting. That is failure of consolidation, of retrieval, decay, context cue mismatch, interference. Then about the consolidation, I don't think you people will be needing so much. Okay, interference is 2 types, retroactive and proactive. What is retroactive information? Like whenever we are trying to take information, 2 information consecutively, then the information that comes after, that is, if we have 2 informations coming at a time, then the information in the second place, that is the number 2 information, if that interferes with the previous one, then that is the retroactive inhibition. And if the first information is interfering with the memorization of the second material, then that will be the proactive interference. Okay, now what we'll write in preliminaries? In preliminaries, you will be writing obviously the name, age, sex, qualification, date and time, and the materials required, strips of paper, paper window and nonsense syllable. Now strips of paper obviously for making the list, paper window also is made for the strips of paper, and the nonsense syllables. Now what is the procedure? Firstly, rapport, establishment with the subject. Then the list of nonsense syllable for the memory span. In the first, we will use 10 nonsense syllable in a list. We will show the individuals, the subjects through the paper window, and we will let him or her write in the same order. After that, we will calculate how much he or she has memorized. The memory span you are taking from that, and by calculating that memory span, multiplying that memory span with 4, we get the size of the list. Now as this is a practical on whole versus part method of learning, we need to have a list of whole. Like if the memory span of a subject, it comes out to be like you have given the 10 syllables, and the subject can reproduce 3 of them in the same order, in the same manner. If the subject can reproduce 3, then the size memory span is 3, and the size of the list for the practical will be 3 into 4, that is 12. For the whole method, we need to prepare a list A of 12 nonsense syllables. In the same way, we have to prepare 2 more lists, the part list, list B1 and list B2, having 6 and 6 syllables. That means whatever number of syllables will be there in list A, we will break that in 2 equal halves in case of the part learning, that is in B1 and B2, and all these nonsense syllables should be unique to their own list and should not be repeated. Then this list will be presented one by one to the subject by that paper window, 2 seconds exposure time. We will be taking trials by trials till the subject could reproduce 100%, that is all the syllables. Till the time the subject could reproduce all the syllables, we will have to take the trial and show the list. After the subject has reproduced 100% of the syllables, we will ask them to write one more time whatever he remember of the list, but this time without showing the list. That is, we are not using paper window or anything to show them the syllables. They'll write it from their memory. And this part is called PCT or Post Criterion Trial. After this whole method, then we will be doing list B1. That is, the first list we will be going up to 100% reproduction. Then again list, see, after 100% reproduction for list B1, you won't be taking PCT, remember this. For whole method, after 100% reproduction, we are immediately taking the PCT. But for list B1, we will go up to 100% reproduction, and after 100% reproduction, we will continue presenting list B2, and we will continue till 100% reproduction. And after the 100% reproduction of list B2, we will be taking PCT of B1 and B2 together. So in this case, the immediate PCT or post criterion trial for the part method of learning is taken together after list B2. After that, necessary calculations are done, comparative chart is prepared, interpretations and conclusions are done. Okay, I'll keep this today and I'll show you a demo. GP was on memory, specific problem to assess, determine the effect of whole versus part method of learning on memorization capacity of the subject. This is on memory. It is written memory only. The PDF, yes, it is written memory only, see. Handbook. See, the information they shared with me, that had a list of practicals to be done, and in that I have to go through it then again. I don't remember right now, then I have to check it and tell it to you. Wait then a bit. Memory experiment, span of attention experiment, memory experiment. See, it started off with, you have many more experiments to do, many more practicals to do. A brief guide to practicals, it is there, a format of the practicum. 16 PF. No. This one, it have Bhatia's battery performance test of intelligence. Then it's 16 PF. Then that I did yesterday. Then family pathology scale, sociometry, problem behavior checklist, span of attention, memory experiment, and this is MPCL 007. Then I don't know. This I don't know, because whatever is shared with me, I'll have to go by that only. So I really don't know if this batch that you are talking about, if you are eligible for this class or not, that also I don't know. Whatever is guided to me, I'll do according.
Yes, ma'am. Shamnika is telling like that way, ma'am, because the batch is not, we are not aware about the batch or which batch is like correct. We just stand on,
Me too are in oblivion. I don't know.
ma'am, whatever the samgas you are providing, ma'am, whatever topics you are providing, these are coming from the study guide. But for July 2020, there are some another practical on which practicals are already mentioned in your books.
That is not shared with me till now. Till now that is not shared with me. If that will be shared, then I will be seeing about those. Now whatever I have been shared with, I will do those.
I think so because July 20 has some other practicals happening, not the memorization related. Yeah, this is the 2021 batch.
Then I do not have any other thing.
That means, ma'am, COVID situation, everything we have lost. The COVID situation, right?
See, I cannot force anyone to stay in the class. If somebody is finding it redundant, then he or she might leave the class, and I don't mind about it.
And ma'am, one more question. After we just started the class, actually, ma'am, we have already written our name, roll number, and the study center code also in the chat box. So means we are not eligible for this particular class. That means July
But I
2021
don't
batch.
think you won't be eligible, because if the syllabus is changed, then that should be communicated to the counselor, I guess. So I don't know. And previously also I did classes with IGNO, and I know these are the practicals that were done for MPCL 007. So if something is changed, they should have informed. But I don't think your knowledge will be wasted. I don't think it won't be a part of your practical. But yes, obviously you can go and ask the regional study center for this. Okay, now can we just complete the thing, because you won't be able to make the paper window unless and until you know how it is made. See, uh, you have to take for this, I have told for this practical you will be needing strips of paper. So strips of paper looks like this. Is it visible to everyone? Please mute everyone. No, I'll take questions at the end of my class. Okay, now please mute everyone. After this class I'll be taking the questions. Now see, turn around. No, I can't. This is a paper only, and though it is marked, you need to have a plain paper, a white paper, just that we get in copies. The full-scape copies, you just strip the papers. A full paper, you just strip it off. One full-scape paper, strip in 3 long papers. Now for the paper window, what we do, in between this, we make a square window. How we do it? See. I'm not using any scissor to do it, but if you want to use it, you can obviously. See. This is what a paper window is, and how we should write. For that also I'll have to show you. I have these sheets only, so I am taking this. Now these are 3 nonsense syllables written over here, okay, in this sheet. Now I'll be showing through this paper window, right? Just have a look. You have only one syllable visible at a time, that too for 2 seconds, that is 1, 2. Now we'll slide down. 1, 2. Again we'll slide down. 1, 2. Okay, so in this way you'll be doing it in your paper so that one syllable at a time should be visible through this paper window. Okay, so how we will be doing this? For the memory span, we will be creating one list like this, 10 syllables. 10 syllables we will be showing to the subject in this way, through this paper window. And after showing the subject, we'll take the list and give him or her a piece of paper so that she or he can write whatever she remembers. Whatever he remembers is the memory span of the subject, not memorization capacity. Like from 10, if the subject can remember, and that too she has to reproduce it in the same order, that is POV, then DEM, then CAG. If the order is not correct, then you cannot give it a tick mark. He has reproduced correctly. So he has to reproduce it in the same order that you have presented. After this, the subject writes whatever he or she remembers, and that is your memory span, and that memory span is multiplied by 4, whatever memory span you are getting, and accordingly you are preparing the similar list but of the number of elements should be that you got the product by multiplying the memory span into 4. That should be your number of materials, number of elements in the list. Okay, that is one in whole list. Like if it is 4, if the memory span is 4, then by multiplying we get 4 into 4, 16. Then in list 1 we will have 16 syllables. Then in list B1 we will have 8 syllables, and in B2 we have 8 syllables. But all the syllables, that is 16 syllables of list A and 8 syllables of B1 and B2, all should be unique and new in the experiment. Nothing should be repeated. Okay, in the same way we will be presenting the list, that is we said we will do the data in trial, that is after giving this. Now we have the list 1 to the subject. Now for this practical you do not instruct your subjects at a single go, that is you started off and you have given all the instructions at a time. No, for this practical you have to give it in steps, that is when you are when you are doing the memory span, you will be saying please sit comfortably, I'll show you certain nonsense syllables, and after that I'll give you a piece of paper, please write it down in the same order as you can remember the list. For any confusion, please let me know. And then you show the list. Then the subject gives you the memory span, and after completion of the list A and list B making, you will instruct about list A. You won't be instructing about PCT. That means you will instruct, this time also I'll show you some nonsense syllables through the paper window, but this time I'll have trials. I'll show you the list unless and until you can memorize 100% of it. So when you are done, when the subject reaches 100% reproduction, then just never instruct him or her about the PCT. When it is done, 100% is done after this instruction, then you give subject the paper and say now what do you remember without showing the list. Then you give a rest for 5 minutes and then show list B1 in the same way with same instruction. I'll show you in trials, that is trial 1, trial 2, trial 3, trial 4, let it be trial 6, line 7, whatever. Let the subject learn 100% of it. After B1, you will be immediately producing again B2 with instructions. And after B1 and B2 is completely learned, this time you will do the PCT. That is, you will be doing the post criterion trial for part method. Now we will just give paper to the subject and say, write whatever you can remember from list B1 and from list B2 without showing them the list. Okay, so in instructions we are not giving, for instructions we are not giving any instruction related to PCT. Okay, this is how the work is done. This is the total procedure that you need to understand to conduct the experiment. After you have taken the data, I will be discussing you how to calculate. I won't be doing it today because that will be an over information from you, and that information won't be registered. Now I'll be open for the question and answer sessions. Whoever have questions can ask, but please one at a time, and others keep your mics muted.
Ma'am, I have a question. Can I answer?
Yes.
Ma'am, I was not there in yesterday's practical. I missed it because I was not given the link. So, have you provided the calculation method in yesterday's practical?
It is already given in my YouTube channel also. You can go and get the yesterday's class. The video is over there. You can get it over there.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Louder, I cannot hear you. Yes. Hey Bhagavan. 10 nonsense syllables is only for the memory span. After you get the memory span, you will be multiplying the memory span with 4. The product that you get will be the size of the list, and your size of the list will determine the memory span. That the memory span that is there, that has already decided the size of the list. So that doesn't mean it will be 10. It can be 12, it can be 14, it can be 18, depending on what was your memory span of the subject. It is already there in the PPT, and I explained this again and again also.
Ma'am, that means it will change from person to person. Suppose a person.
Obviously, that is the practical on memorization.
Yeah. So it will multiply by 4. Suppose it is 12. So 12 will be in the list of B1 and B2.
No, 12 will be there for list A, whole method. For part method, it will be 6 and 6. For part method, B1 and B2, it will be 6 and 6. You won't remember. The subject, let the subject memorize 100%. No. In each trial he will be right. Like I'll just show you. Wait. If this is like, just show if this is an example. You have 3 syllables. You are showing through the paper window. It is trial 1, T1. These 3 syllables are shown. Just imagine subject remembered 1 POV in trial 1. Okay. Then you will again show the subject the same list with the paper window, and you will take trial 2 in this way. Trial 1, see, trial 2. Now here also the subject will learn some few. In this way we will be providing the subject trials unless and until he memorizes 100% of it. What you can start? You have started. This is the practical. Yes, PCT. After 100, yes, and after 100% reproduction, you won't. You just provide a piece of paper and say, now you write whatever you can. একদম পড়তে হবে, মনে রাখতে হবে। কি ট্রায়াল প্রথম যে লিস্টটা থাকবে সেটা তো মেমরি স্প্যানের লিস্ট। 10টা বললামই তো, 10টা। No, where did I say about the 10 trials? Did I mention the exact number of trials? That was only for the memory span. I have repeatedly made you understand this, कि only for the memory span we are using the 10 syllables. I explained you in PPT and I showed you here also. For the memory span we have only 10 syllables in a list, and after that whatever be your memory span multiplied by 4 will be that product will be the size of the list. The same thing I am telling you again and again. Please make it clear, everyone. No, it is basically not a hard and fast rule. We do it into 3 or into 2 plus 2, but as it is whole versus part method of learning, here we have to split the part list into 2. If your memory, just think about it, your memory span, it comes your subject to about 2 and we multiplied it by 3, then the answer is 6. Then if we split in V1, we will only have 3 and 3 syllables, and that learning will be completed by 1 trial merely, or hardly 2 trials. That won't be taken. For the whole and verse part method of learning, we generally multiply it by 4. That is 4 times of your memory span. But there are various other practicals we do for memory. In that cases, we generally multiply it by 3. আমি শুনতে পাচ্ছি না। আমি কিচ্ছু শুনতে পাচ্ছি না, কারণ এখানে সবার মাইক এত খোলা, আই এম নট বিং এবল টু অ্যাকচুয়ালি হিয়ার এনিথিং। আমিও প্রশ্ন শুনতে পাচ্ছি না। বলছে কিছু শুনতে পাচ্ছি